Okay, this the nexus among population, economy, poverty, and inclusive growth. My argument is that population, the real economy, as distinguished from the financial economy, as you know, financial economy is composed of the stock market, the banking sector, the bond market, and these are doing very well, and that's why we have been getting credit rating upgrades by, you know, the Moody's and Fitch, and soon by Standard and Poor. But the real economy is something else. This has to do with productivity, production of goods and services, quality goods and services, as well as creating employment, but which has not been doing as well. The argument I'm making is that population centrally figures in both markets, demand and supply sides of the two markets, the goods market and the labor market. Therefore, the growth rate of the population, the age structure, the spatial distribution must be key factors in a country's development strategy that aims to promote rapid and sustained economic growth, full employment, poverty reduction, and social inclusion. I was in a conference the other day, and our colleague Balisacan, R.C. Balisacan, made a presentation, and I was surprised that there was no mention of the importance of the population dimension in the development strategy, in the Philippine Medium-Term Development Plan. And I figure from private conversation that this is because, again, I think it's in deference to the Catholic sector, Catholic hierarchy, and because for the Philippine Development Plan to be finalized, it has to undergo sectoral consultation. So, but I don't know why we still have to be so cautious vis-a-vis the Catholic Church hierarchy. Their credibility has been going down rapidly. Anyway, so the strategy for inclusive growth that I'm proposing is we cannot overemphasize only the demand for labor side or job creation, which has been limited by development progeria. But of course, we need to revive our industry and manufacturing because these are the sectors that create employment. But an indispensable component or complement in inclusive growth strategy is population management to address the quantity and the quality of labor supply, meaning the workforce, so that they are more employable, they get higher wages, higher incomes, and savings will be available for investment and so on. So the benefits of population management at the micro level, and this is more important than at the macro level, the RH programs enable poor women and burdened by unwanted and unplanned pregnancies to improve their well-being, acquire skills, be empowered, and be gainfully employed. And this is what the women's groups have been, strongly advocating. Further, fewer wanted and better cared for children benefit from human capital investment and hence a more promising future, thereby breaking the vicious circle of intergenerational poverty. Our poverty has flatlined, poverty incidence has flatlined precisely because of the perpetuation of intergenerational poverty. At the macro level, population growth declines, average incomes rise, poverty falls, and public social spending per person rises, meaning higher quality social services. In the longer run, fewer entrants into the workforce equipped with more education and skills will result in a balance between the supply of and demand for labor, resulting in full employment, not high unemployment that we have been experiencing. As a development policy, this program is actually cost-effective if you, according to the development literature. So let me do some counterfactual musing. What if the opposition to the RH bill or the RH law now were simply ignored? In other words, what if instead of us hard church and soft state. We had a hard state and a soft church. Rather, the best case scenario would have been that the Philippines and Thailand, known to be demographic twins in the 1970s, might still remain such twins. So we know the indicators in Thailand are much better than the Philippines now. But less than best case scenario, because we might have some failings in terms of policy, economic and social policy vis-a-vis Thailand. I would think that our population now would be 70 million instead of 100 million, compared with Thailand's 67 million currently. Population growth rate would be 1% versus Thailand's 0.8%. Our population growth rate is currently at close to 2%. And total fertility rate would be perhaps 1.8 instead of 3.3 now versus Thailand's 1.6. Gross national income per person would be, instead of $2,200 per person, would be $3,800 versus Thailand's $4,400. Poverty incidence, instead of 27%, would probably be only 16%, which is close to the Millennium Development Goal of 15%. Thailand's is only 13%. Okay, you just caught me at the right time, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Pernian. Can we now call on Professor Hocano?
Good morning, everyone. Morning my talk is entitled Culture, Complexity, and Change. When Dr. Poblador invited me to contribute to our forum, we didn't realize just how complex this would be. And yet, on the other hand, we just also realized that this is one of the cutting-edge areas in research in anthropology, handling complexity. So, what is our discipline's take on the whole matter of complexity? I placed here, in a broad sense, what we do is like the work of the ethnographer. We analyze the complexity of daily human behavior. Preliminary to this, in trying to understand complexity theory, from what I understand now so far, complexity theory focuses on finding order out of seemingly random and unconnected events. So, of course, the famous illustration by meteorologist Lawrence about the butterfly effect. One event here leads to events elsewhere. And key concepts include fluidity and dynamism, ranging from weather, swarm behavior in birds, yes, economics. And in contrast to linear explanations, complexity theory is nonlinear, focusing on the dynamics instead of these systems. And in social science, we have the complex adaptive systems, a term used to describe a set of phenomena often presented in mathematical terms that, while seemingly chaotic or complex, actually display a certain level of order. I found this fascinating because CAS, or complex adaptive systems, seems to be one of the major models being used in sociology. And in the area of anthropology, on the other hand, there has been a bit of ambivalence towards complex adaptive systems modeling. One group looking forward to or perhaps working with it, the other one critiquing it, but that is the nature of any discipline, I would suppose. In any case, I pointed out here that the work of the ethnographer is like that of the analyst of complexity. We look for order out of the seemingly random and unconnected social events. And that's what we do when we're immersed in a community. We see in the first impressions that rush in upon you, oh, all of these things are happening. Why? The question we always ask is, why do they do this? Why? And from that relentless asking of why, begin to piece together and interpret. I think this is important. We interpret these seemingly unrelated events as being orderly after all. So the fluidity of daily life and please note the use fluidity of daily life, is described and categorized as pattern behavior. So in the classic ethnographies, we use the big categories. We look for things like explaining things according to religion, according to belief, mythology, and so on. One thing as I understand from the work, comparing the work between those working with complexity and those with what we do, is that the analyst looks for the emergent patterns of seeing chaos, whereas the ethnographer will look for how people arrive at the decisions to the cultural systems, that complex bundle of shared behaviors and beliefs characteristic of a community. Let me also point out here that while we use the word community, the word community itself has been expanded to mean even communities that are not located in any physical or geographical sense, but perhaps in a virtual sense. One of the new areas of research in anthropology is, of course, the cyber community, where we look at communities that are not created in physical sense, or perhaps the members are there physically present, but they're scattered in different areas around the world, coming together in a virtual world, right? By using concept of culture as its guiding mechanism, anthropology as a discipline is actually engaged with complexity as a phenomenon. Culture has become a means of reducing complexity of daily life to readily understandable phenomena: religion, history, material culture, values. And in contrast to the physical sciences take on complexity, we're using large data, quantitative methods, predictive approaches. The anthropological method focuses on qualitative description and explanatory models. You combine informant data and external observation. Now, both sides of the sciences approach the study of complexity from a continuum of two opposite ends, the physical and the social. But after having listened to Dr. Neil Garcia, I realized that perhaps this should not be I should not be so binary, but perhaps trinary. There is, of course, literary and the art, right?